Okay, today we're gonna talk about depression from the ground up. So, before we can get to the solution on how to fight and find a solution for depression, I want to first talk about what is depression fundamentally. What most people didn't know is that depression is actually a normal process. It is what balances your happiness and makes our lives as a whole. So everyone have depression, and it's normal to have depression. Even the president feels depressed at some point. Even the top philosophers, psychologists, and researchers, understanding of a subject does not always grant you the ability of infinite happiness. Like you can understand all you want about how stock work, but when the day collapses and you get depressed, there's nothing you can do. And that is built in within ourselves, within our existence. And depression are often scaled on the ratio between logic and emotion. Basically what it means is that some people are more towards logic and some people are more towards emotion. And I would say like most of the people are in between, half. Some like they have a certain bias. People always have certain bias to logic or emotion, and that bias can depend from subject to subject also. So, but usually the more emotional you are, the deeper the can extend. Basically, what it means is that depression have more to do with your emotional rather than your your reasoning of things, which I'm gonna talk about as we go down the list about different type of depression. And a person can never truly be logical or emotional because to be human in general, you have to have both. You know, if you're too logical, you're like a computer. When you're too emotional, then that would be troublesome. Like you wouldn't know how money work, how math work at all because you're all emotional. You would say like, for example, like a totally emotional person, it would be impossible because they wouldn't know what is numbers because numbers are way too precise. Emotional is not a precise thing. You know, logical is much more precise. That it is hard to explain, but I think everyone gets the idea. Yeah, like artists are more leaning towards emotional side, and philosophers and scientists are more logical side. Like Albert Einstein, for example, he's one of the top scientists. You know, you can say that he's possibly one of the most logical person on this entire planet because he was so smart and he was, you know, but he still have emotion. Even though, you know, if you Google his pictures, we'll see that he don't really laugh. All of his faces are neutral, but he do have occasional laughs here and there. And laughing isn't emotional. If you're truly logical, things just you. Yeah, that's for another topic. And people tends to leaning more towards logic as they age. From like for example, when you're a baby, you're obviously emotional. You don't know any logics whatsoever. And as you grow older and older, when you're a teenager, then you're going into adult. Then when you're at your 50s, then that's when you're more likely to be logical. When you're in your younger age, then you're more emotional. But after the age of 50, you come back down to being emotional. Um, so yeah, so I mean, it's arguably like which side is better for you. Yeah, everyone experiences depression and mostly unaffected by time, technology, and events. Basically, this particular part talks about, you know, like for example, during the time of World War One, World War Two, people, they did not get depressed because they didn't have like technology like we have right now. Like they didn't have cell phone. Like nowadays, like if you take away anyone's cell phone, they will get depressed. One reason or another, for many reasons. But back then, people were living in poverty. More people were living in poverty, and most of the people don't even have what we have right now, or even close. But they did not feel as depressed. It's kind of balanced. So the greater the happiness, the harder the fail when you were to lose it. Often like drug addictions. Basically, it's like your life is balanced. Is pretty balanced based on what you have rather than what you don't have. So no matter what kind, it's really hard to explain. But basically, like if you're born as a homeless person, you wouldn't be depressed thinking about, oh, you can't afford a house, because you know that back then nobody can really afford anything. It's really hard to explain. I'm not, I guess I'm too distracted to talk about that right now, but you get the idea. It's often like a drug addiction. Why is it like a drug addiction? It's because drug actually messes with your brain biochemically, so much that it can make you, how do I say, maximize your happiness. If you ever done drugs, obviously you'll know that drugs can maximize your emotion. Basically, the greater the happiness, the harder the fail when you lose it. That's why a lot of people build up to have drug addiction, or they have depression after abusing on drug, because they're so used to having that sense of greatness, that happiness, that when they lose it, they can't really bear the consequences of losing it. That's why even like after so many years, they can still go back to being a drug addict. But one thing that people have to know about drug addiction is that relationships, financial stability, having money, family, friends, anything of event that makes us happy, it can actually harm us in the other way when we lose it. When we were to lose it. So our brain, and a lot of people will say like our brain and what's happening outside of our brain are totally separate. But in reality is that our brain does get affected on what's outside of what we're seeing, what we're experiencing. It actually affects our brain. And they are more or less, significantly more or less. And before we go into the psychological magic bullet for depression, you might want to look at yourself in the mirrors and ask yourself what level of control you have over your motivation. Because this entire video are going to be completely meaningless unless you have the motivation for change. If you're just going to say, I'm too depressed, I don't want to do anything, I just want to sleep, I'd rather do something else, I'd rather be depressed than change. Then I guess then nobody can really help you. Like there is a medicine for this care, but you can't get it because you don't even want to get the care. Then there is nothing we can do, and you have to advocate a lot of energy away from your current depression, to give yourself a lot of time and energy, because what we're gonna talk about are gonna involve your own motivation, your own effort as well. It's not gonna be like, oh, I'm just gonna say this very sentence and then you're just gonna understand it immediately, then you're not gonna be depressed. Obviously, that's not gonna happen. So obviously, you have to have the sense of just fighting it. Prepare yourself for a war against depression. Without this very concept of wanting, actually desiring, and truly desperate to escape from depression, then, all of the changes would be useless. And today we're going to talk about two types of depression that affect all of us. One is with reasoning or cause. For example, your depression is caused by a particular event, death, loss, like family member or money, work, family, friend, relationship, or conflict. Like you had a physical fight with somebody, obviously that dragged your existence. It drags you into somewhat of a depression and sadness, but it is temporary usually. If those are the ones with cause, with a reason, where specific event, memory of it, like it can happen in the past, but you are thinking about it right now, and it can bring you depression, and anxiety, and sadness. People with bias towards logic tends to be better at resolving this particular type of depression, because like people who are logical, they know how to deal with the situation when they have a cause. So we'll try to reason with the cause and try to find a solution around the cause and try to just neutralize it. For emotional people, it is harder. This is the most common one. Everyone suffers from depression, for a reason, for a cause. Like whenever you are sad, obviously that's a cause. Like everyone kind of experience it. You get that idea. However, the other one is their depression without a reason. It's genetic illness or biochemistry of your brain, and a woman tends to suffer twice as many of as men when they are depressed without reason. And it's an unknown factor. Actually look into this unknown factor. I guess it's like women and men have different brain or genetic somewhat that women kind of suffer more from this type of depression. I don't want to bring into detail, but and symptoms. Yeah, I'm gonna talk about depression without reasoning first, and their symptoms. Lack of self-interest in everything, from hobbies to family to friends to socializing. You just don't have this self-interest. You are not going to, unless your personality, unless you're bipolar, which I'm not gonna talk about. But they usually, when they're experiencing under the effect and symptoms of depression, they're usually lack of self-interest, and they're feeling hopeless and negative, and they're feeling empty, unsatisfied, and sadness, and physically feeling lack of energy, lack of appetite, affect their sleep. Depends on the intensity of the depression, the symptom can vary. And one thing about this depression is that, and bipolar emotion, I want to specifically mention, is that depression and a person's personality, they can often switch around. It depends on the intensity of the depression. It can overcome your personality. Therefore, you're completely a different person when you're under depression, and when you're not under depression, you become happy again. And that highly is very much related to depression without any reasoning, which is closely related to genetics. Usually, when you go to a psychologist today, and when you say, why are you being depressed? And you say, I don't really know the reason, I'm just saying. They typically would just say, you know what, medical treatment. Not exactly the healthiest way, but it works. It's the most common way, it's the most subscribed. That's why a lot of psychologists, when you just go to them, just give you the medicine. That's all. That's pretty much the entire purpose of psychologists. When you don't have a specific reason for depression, they just said, you know what, it's genetic, and here's medicine. Go take the pill. And the pill, there's so many different pills and drugs. For example, marijuana can be a type of pill as well. But there isn't a pill that can cure depression. It can reduce the effect of depression, but it can't really cure it. And different drugs have different effect and side effect. Depends on the strength of the drug usually. And you have to ask your own psychologist for that information, which I'm not going to talk about in this particular video. That's something that you can ask anyone. However, solution 2 is that slow and steady, but a suffering process, but which takes a lot of will and control, which is normalization. Normalization have to do with time and how you're getting used to things. It is a simple way of saying just get used to it, you know? Like when you're genetically unstable, like when you're genetically depressed, unstable, you will get used to it over time because it's people's brain just tends to just get used to it over time. You might be more vulnerable, but over time you'll normalize it. You know, if you don't have any reason to be depressed and life is going well and the future is bright, as long as you're understanding that you are having depression for no reason, then you can just forcibly ignore the influence and go on with life. And that takes a lot of control and knowing about yourself. And this is not suitable if you have crippling depression. This only works when you have low to mid-level depression, where you actually can control and have the will to normalize it. Well, this method might be, again, too slow and steady and suffering for you. So we might go to the solution number 3. And about all these solutions is that sometimes you have to use all of it at the same time. You have to jump around. So that jumping around just simply work. You can't just say, I'm just going to take drugs and it's going to solve everything. It's not. So you have to actually prepare psychologically as well with drugs to make it, to basically combine for a maximum effect, you know. So it's like buying a lottery, I guess. So, solution 3, temporary but not a long-term solution, but the effect is imminent, which is distraction. Distraction is much more of a solution than you might think. It's a very short term, it's temporary, but have a distraction. Whether or not it is a friend or a list to do when you're lacking interest, even if you're lacking interest, have some movie to watch, keep yourself very busy, too busy to feel down, too busy to just lay on the chair and relax in the bed and just, you know, you cannot just say, I'm gonna depress, I'm not gonna sit in bed and stay depressed. You can't do that. You have to do something else to not thinking about that depression. And it will remove depression completely, temporarily when you're busy. And try to do something meaningful when you're distracted, while you're keeping yourself distracted. Like, do something meaningful. Like, don't just, I don't know, do something boring. You know, do something meaningful when you're trying. I mean, it's optional, but try to do that and talk with friends or finding friend is part of it. Just generate distraction for yourself. Try to be distracted. Don't even have time to sit down to be depressed. And solution 3, again, is very, you know, it takes a lot of control. Again, it takes a lot of control, but if you have the control, then it will get you out of depression. Even though it's short term, but you can use it over and over and over and over, getting you through. And here is experimental solution, costly, personalized, and specialized for your circumstances. Counterforce, a mixture of all the solutions, as we said, is to have an expert around you or trained family member or friend that you are willing to share your emotion with. And they're willing to provide you with the right guidance and the right counterforce that pushes you out of depression stage. Usually, the closer that person is with you, the better. Like, face to face is better than video, is better than call, is better than text and emailing. Goes down the list. It is a specialized and trained task. Not all friends can do it. Basically, what it means is that talk to your family or friend who are trained to how to feel, to apply counter pressure to you. For example, when you're feeling hopeless, have someone that give you hope. When you're feeling desperate, have someone to support you, give you a future. Think about all the positives. Have someone around that can help you, that knows you, that you're willing to share your emotion with. For example, recent, like President Trump got elected. Obviously, a lot of people don't like him, nor like Hillary. So a lot of people get depressed because of that. Have someone to talk to, like tell them about what's you're feeling and discuss about it mutually as a friend, and it will help you a lot. But it would be better if they know how to exactly apply the counter force, and basically pushes you back to being more normal. A solution door, which is to go back and look at the path for the solution for depression with a cause, and it will help. So let's go back to the other type of depression, which is depression with reasoning or cause. And honestly, most of the people who suffer from depression, they experience both. Even if you're genetically anti-depression, you still will feel depression, because as long as you feel sad, as long as you cried before, you're feeling it. It's just more or less. Whether or not it is crippling or just like something that you can control. It's always like that. Because depression is part of you. It is, for example, when you're happy, you're up there. When you're being sad, you're down there. And when you're sad, it's the same as being depressed. And when you're neutral, that's when it's science, facts, and you can't really have too much emotion where you can, but you're talking about it on your emotional side. So the symptoms of depression with the reason and cause. Honestly, I'm talking about this while having I'm not really happy right now, obviously, but I continue because making this video keeps me distracted. I mean, I gotta say, I kind of, I used to be depressed, I gotta say this, but you gotta control it so much that even if you're feeling depressed, it doesn't affect you, Like, even if you're feeling sad, it doesn't affect you. It's like one of the most inspiring thing about depression, about fighting depression, is actually from my teacher. I will remember my teacher in back once in elementary school is like everyone got F in test, and the teacher is very pissed because like when everyone gets F, they get a deduction in their paycheck because like the class is not doing so well. So she was mad, right? She was mad at the entire class, screaming, hitting desk. Because apparently teachers in China was very strict, and they're is very respected because they actually love their job. They actually care about learning the well-being, so they're actually emotionally connected with their student. And then what happens is that their family called them on their cell phone, and they answer the phone. They were like screaming on the desk, but the moment that they answer the phone, they're like, "Oh, hello. Oh, how are you doing? I'm doing excellent. Yeah, let's meet tonight at dinner. Okay, so talk to you later. Good night." And not really good, but I'm just saying. Basically, I forgot what exact word, but their emotion changed right when they met, like when they were on the phone call. Right after they hang up the phone call, they get back and they stand in the desk and say, "The entire class is not doing well. You gotta all try much harder." What that taught me was that, like, you were emotional, but you know how to control it at the right circumstance, so much that it doesn't affect who you are. It doesn't affect your social life, it doesn't affect your friend, family, so much that you can, it just doesn't affect you. For example, right now, the entire video, I'm feeling depressed, I'm feeling tired, obviously, and I haven't been, I have so much things to do. And guess sometimes it gets to me, and this video took me a long time to do all the research, communicate with all the people, and talk with friends and researchers, and research online, look at different research just to get it done. And you know, I'm not happy exactly, but it doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect me. It just simply doesn't affect me. Because once you neutralize it, you just, it's like your body telling you, no, don't be happy, but you're saying yes, yes, yes. Be happy. I guess that's how it works. Sometimes that's how it works. So symptoms for depression with a cause. Feeling hopeless, desperate, sadness, that you're feeling that you're never going to recover from anything. You cannot process or even think. Sometimes, I'm a philosopher. Sometimes I can't even think. I think I'm a very, very logical person. But sometimes depression just simply disables you on the track so much that you can't really do anything about it. And you lack motivation and drive. And you recalling the loss over and over couldn't get back up emotionally. It can lead to you being emotionally cold, violent, and it can snowball really fast. Snowball effect. Some people, when they can't really control their depression, what happens is that they become more cold, they become even more depressed, they lose even more friends, they become isolated. And then that's when, things can happen, like suicide, committing suicide. And physically, lack of energy, effects of anxiety and physical comfort can occur. Physical discomfort, this thing, it affects some people more or less than others. I have known people, like, literally when the moment that they don't feel so well, the body just simply dies. They just collapse. Just simply they get cancer the next day. Well, some people just don't. Depends on your biology. It is a variable, but one way or another, it always affects you physically, more or less, even if you have tolerance. So what's the solution for it? Fight it, overcome it, conquer it on top of its action of change. Immediately force yourself with all of your motivation for change. If you suffer loss, financially stuck, business or job, try to get yourself back on track steadily, slowly, with a precise goal. It's very tough. That's why it's fighting it, overcome it. It's not easy. It's not you walk it, you fight it. It's a war. Same as the beginning, is a war. When you lose a friend, relationship, go out and get a new one. Make baby steps. Try to recover from what you lost. A lot of people think, after, I lost a relationship, you think this is the end of the world. There won't be another person just like them, just like him or her, But in reality, there's billions of people out there. If you can conquer it, you'll be stronger next time, and the next time you'll have a higher success rate. Think about that, and maybe the next time it'll be even better because now you know more people. Lost money, stock collapse, go out and earn more money. When you lose a job, go out, get a new job. Typically what's happened when you lose a job is that you can go out and get another job. It pays 5% to 10% even higher, because that's when you jump. Like, you have existing wage, when you jump, it usually gets higher. But it doesn't work for all the causes and reasons. For example, it only works for financial things and things that you can recover, regain, and replace. It doesn't work for things that, for example, your mom died, then you can't really replace your mom. So that's not something that you can change with action. You will suffer when you're on the path, when you're when you're doing the action of change. But once you make it out, you become a winner, and you become stronger the next time. Thanks to your dedication and your will. It's really tough. I gotta say, it's really tough. But you will get, you will change eventually. It's just a matter of time. It's the lower the time it takes, the better it is, generally speaking. Usually speaking. I mean, it can take you 10 years. You know, you can't like depression, stay in bed for 10 years. And then finally you snap out of it. But, you know, it affected you for 10 years. You could do so much more for that 10 years. You know, think about that. Solution 2. Logically understand it and neutralize it. Logic grinder. They're more for philosophers. If you have a bias towards logic rather than emotion, a little bit more or less, this solution will be easier for you. This works best when you cannot change certain things like death. Like not death for you. Like when you die, nothing, you know, you just lost everything. But like when you face death or losses that you can't really control, it's like, yeah, I'm not gonna play it. It's boring. I'm sorry if I'm drinking soda right now. This soda water, flavored soda water. It contains a lot of CO2. Okay, and understanding of the subject. Basically, what it means is that when you understand a subject completely, it simply removes all the emotion connection with the subject. It's like when you understand, like when somebody in your family died, try to logically understand it. Logically understand the situation rather than emotionally understand it and get stuck in depression. Like when somebody died, you can think about, oh, you have to live a really great life. You have to live into their 90s. They had a really happy life. They have so much experience. You know, they had every single, you know, they give birth to my mom, and my mom, you know, gave birth to me, and I'm very happy. I think they're a really good person. You know, try to understand, try to interpret it logically, and it will make you feel better. Understanding of facts aren't always feasible for heavily emotional people, you know. So only time can normalize your depression if you're very emotional, but logically it helps. Solution number 3. When doing something out of ordinary, it always rewards you one way or other. Exceptionalism. You know, that's why I push the exceptionalism so hard. There's so much benefit of being exceptional. I'm not gonna go exactly in detail, but it is something that you can read about. I'm gonna write a paper by end of the year that talk about exceptionalism. When feeling overwhelmed, do something out of ordinary. Distract yourself out of old self and explore new vision of you doing things completely outside of whom you are. It also changes your brain's biochemistry to gain more standing against existing depression conditions. You know, when you have, you know, basically this is something that was again brought up on the research paper, is that when you do something different, it changes the structure of your brain. For example, your current structure of your brain is vulnerable to depression. However, when you do something out of ordinary, you build immunity to that exception, to that old depression. You know, for people who didn't have depression before, but now you are, maybe your brain chemistry kind of changed, because, you know, I gotta say, recently I got depression because of 4 friends. Basic. I don't know why recently, you know, so many friends around me have depression. Like when I ask, do you have depression? Are you feeling? Do you actually feel? Like I actually asked that question, and they say, oh, I do actually had panic attack, depression, and you know, thinking about this research made me kind of getting depression also. So, you know, after making this video, I had to really do something more exceptional and get out of it, change my brain's chemistry. So it can be, you know, changing of your brain structure can be good or bad. So basically, you have never tried travel, try to do it, never gone skydiving, try to do it. You know, it's crazy. But once you do it, you'll feel a lot better. Trust me, the harder you push yourself, the more reward you'll get. the harder the change. Never gone swimming, do it. Never gone to a comedy show, do it. Music show, do it. Rave, do it. Bar, do it. Never gone to, got time to walk in park, do it. Just do something new. Often take away what you used to do, and when you do something different, and it will change you. Hopefully that change will make you less depressed. And solution, how come this is solution 3? This is solution 3. Okay, 3.5. 3.5. When doing some, oh yeah, this is the same. My bad. Oh yeah, this slide is gonna be posted online, so you can take a look at it and review it. And this graph will be updated as all the, I'm very interested on how to find an emotional care for depression. I guess it becomes a huge topic now, because I have been always focused on logic. I didn't focus much on emotion. I figured that from now I have to, look at the emotional side much more. So let's go to the solution number 4. Distractions are often bad, but it can be good when used as a poison to fight depression. So this is distraction plus. Try to go to your local massaging service. Try to get some massages when you're feeling overwhelmed. Me and my dad will go to massage when you're feeling just whatever, I think it really helps because you're being physically massaged and it hurts, and it just simply distracts you away from whatever that you're thinking that is making you depressed. And that's actually really efficient, and it's not very costly, like $25 plus including tax and tip. And look at things online, find things you like, buy them, buy the slowest shipping, and think about how happy you will be when it arrives. When feeling depressed, distract yourself with the feeling of getting new things. This is a consumer capitalism. What's the leading cause? Happiness, why people earn money at first place, which is to buy things. In America, particularly, we consume. We're happy and we tend to be more productive because we consume things. We keep on buying new things, making ourselves happy. That's why, American, in one way or other, it's just quite as efficient. It's a hard working country compared to Europe. Even though how this is, most of us shares culture with Europe, I guess. Generally speaking, I don't know, but it just does. It just does. Or run and exercise. One thing about running and exercising is that run when you're out of breath and completely out of energy. It reminds you of one thing, that nothing consumes you more than a cup of cold water and chair. Basically, you get distracted, and sometimes you will value when have you ever run so crazy, that you actually feel like you're dying? At that moment, you just don't think about anything but how to survive. And that survive is gonna lead us to the next solution, is experimental solution. Costly, specialized, needs an open heart and let it fall. Unknown. As long as the depression didn't kill you, you will survive. It is only a matter of time before you get back up alive. But in an expert controlled environment and variables, all of it can be artificially induced, which leads to a faster progression to push your depression to its lowest depths, which allows you to be taught how to build immunity towards it. People who doesn't know how to truly deal with depression, sadness, or meaning in life. Okay, this particular solution, it worked for me 6 years ago. You have to feel the lowest, the most depressed moment of your life. So once you're close to dying, but you couldn't die, you couldn't do it, then you stand back up from the lowest ground of your life. And then you appreciate everything a little bit more. When you don't have a friend, then you have a friend. You'll appreciate that friend particularly more. It's really hard to say. It's very experimental. It depends on the individuals. Sometimes, and there's this custom, solutions for you. For example, hatred can be used to solve some people's depression. By breaking things, it can be used to solve depression. It actually does in some circumstances. Sometimes, you can be given a perspective that will help you to see from the other side, from a different perspective, so much that you will say, you know what, I might not care about it anymore. Is that a relationship? Some people can say that particular person is really bad. Some people can say that particular person is like just perfect for you. Basically, when you're suffering from depression, you can't let somebody else who just lowers the value of that particular person, and you just learn from their perspective, so that you no longer. So you change. Some people don't like change, but believe it or not, everyone change. Which is,